This gentleman here is going to lecture on bleeding, okay?
The floor is yours. Are you hot? I'm ready? Yeah. I didn't know. Alright, are you hot or are you cold there? I'm cold. My upper body's kind of cold, but my lower body's hot. Alright, before we start, what do you guys know about bleeding? Anyone? Alright. You, oh boy. What do you know about bleeding? Anything. Anything. And yo, what's the question? Do you like blood? That's only give me 3 people. Alright, you next. You look at me.
There's plasma in the blood.
What type of tissue is blood?
What?
What type of tissue is blood? You're a paramedic, you gotta know this shit. I got it. What type of tissue is blood? Doctors.
Trauma.
What type of tissue is blood?
Oh,
Connective, doctors.
Connecting all of that stuff. Alright, trauma. What do you guys know about trauma? What's trauma again? What is exactly? What is trauma? Yes, EMT, but I know trauma. Hey, what's your halfway, bro? So no one knows what trauma is?
Trauma.
Very serious injury. Bingo! Alright, recognize bleeding. How do you recognize bleeding? You see it, right? You can see the blood. Obviously, you can see the blood. What are some skin signs that block the blood? Like skin signs. Boom, who said pale? Come on. Alright, pathophysiology, sentient, and natural bleeding. We're going to go over that next slide.
There you go.
Pathophysiology, we all know what that is, man. Apply the fundamental knowledge of the pathophysiology of respiration and infusion. Alright, you must recognize bleeding. Come on, you gotta know if bleeding, how to treat it. Understand how bleeding affects the body. Bleeding can be external or internal. Bleeding can cause weakness, shock, and death. You're not always going to see internal bleeding, so that's something to look out for.
Is menstrual bleeding always bad?
What?
Menstrual bleeding?
I mean, if it's too much, yeah. You should ask the patient if they're going through too many fast.
How do you know if there's inside bleeding?
You won't all the time. Sometimes you might see like swelling or some tenderness, but you're not going to know all the time for cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system circulates blood to cells and tissues. It delivers oxygen and nutrients, carries away metabolic waste products, and is responsible for supplying and maintaining adequate blood flow. 3 parts, right? What's the pump? If anyone has a guess. Alright, okay. The pump is the heart, the container is the blood vessels, and then the fluids, the blood and the body fluids. There's a nice little diagram so that's
What we have to draw?
I think so.
You might explain the diagram
What's the pathway to the heart?
Do you not see it? Alright, this is the brain.
I'm blind.
I got you, bro. So this is the brain, this is the lungs, this is the heart, this is the lower body and the legs. The blue is deoxygenated blood, the red is oxygenated blood.
What's the portal system?
That's on the next slide, actually, 2 slides. Let me see that. What do you need help with on this stuff? Like,
No, I just wanted.
oh, for sure, I got you. Yeah, so the blue is deoxygenated, and then red is oxygenated. So it's just kind of a whole blood flow. Alright. The heart, it needs a rich and well-distributed blood supply. It works as 2 paired pumps, the upper chamber and the lower chamber. Blood leaves each chamber through a one-way valve. That's the pump system, what they was talking about right there. See, got the 2 chambers. So here's the heart. Just take a minute and look at that real quick. I don't know how far you guys are yet, but The right side of the heart circulates blood from the body to the rest of the lungs. The left side of the heart circulates oxygen blood from the lungs to the rest of the body. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Arterioles are smaller vessels that connect the arteries and capillaries. Capillaries pass along the cells and lead to arterioles and venules. Arteries, I mean, it's kind of stupid, but arteries almost sounds like a way. You have to remember to carry blood away from the heart. Arteries is a way.
Is it true that arteries always take away oxygen?
Huh?
Oxygenated blood?
Is it true that they always
Yeah. Arteries take deoxygenated blood.
away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
100% of the time? Always?
I mean, now I feel like it's not.
I think what he's trying to ask is, do arteries always only carry oxygenated blood?
See, thank you.
Hey, wait a while.
Good job.
Question. Nah, there's some that don't.
You should be his class.
I should. Yeah, I don't know if it's a game you want to do not live, but they all do not. Blood vessels run. Oxygen nutrients passing from capillaries to the cells. Waste and carbon dioxide diffuse into the capillaries. Here's a nice little diagram.
What is that?
These are capillaries.
Where?
Right here.
No, where in the body?
It might be in the arm. I don't know what part of the body, but it's blood vessels. So it's somewhere in the arm, leg, be anywhere.
Not in the brain.
I don't think it says exactly where. Oh yeah, look at the illness. Okay. Wait, look at the diagram was. Yeah, so that's the lungs. You see the gas change, you know, the CO2 going out. Blood contains red blood cells responsible for the transportation of oxygen to the cells and carbon dioxide away from the cells in the blood. Blood contains white blood cells responsible for fighting infection, platelets responsible for forming blood clots, and plasma. Blood clot formation depends on blood stasis, changes in the blood vessel walls, blood's ability to clot. When tissues are injured, platelets prevent the collect at the site of injury. Red blood cells to become sticky and come together, that's different platelets kind of doing the job of the body. The autonomic nervous system monitors the body's need, adjusts blood flow, automatically redirects blood away from the organs, the heart, the brain, lungs, and kidneys in emergency, adapts to maintain homeostasis and perfusion. Autonomic, in the name of the sound, automatic, can't really control that. Pathophysiology of perfusion. Perfusion is the circulation of blood within an organ or tissue to meet cells used for oxygen entry and removal. Here's another little diagram. Here's the vein, the arterioles, the capillaries, the organ, and then it's more capillaries and venules. Speed of blood flow, fast enough to maintain circulation, slow enough to allow cells to exchange oxygen and nutrients for carbon dioxide and waste. Some tissue need a constant supply of blood, while others can survive with very little. What do you guys think can affect the speed of blood flow? Yeah. Anything else? Temperature good? Okay, pressure. All organs and organ systems depend on adequate perfusion to function properly. Death of an organ system can quickly lead to the death of a patient. Emergency care supports adequate perfusion until the patient arrives at the hospital. The heart will fire the process of blood. Hemorrhage, bleeding, external bleeding is visible hemorrhage. Like I said, you're not always visible internal bleeding, but external bleeding is most appreciated. With serious external bleeding, it may be difficult to tell the amount of blood loss. Blood looks different. Blood looks different on different surfaces. Estimate the amount of external blood loss. Body will not tolerate blood loss greater than 20% of blood. Changes in vital signs may occur with significant blood loss, increase in heart rate, increase in respiratory rate, decrease in blood pressure. Why do you guys think the body's losing it? It's trying to compensate for the loss. But yeah, it's really nothing else in the car too. How well people compensate for blood loss is related to how rapidly they bleed. An adult can comfortably donate 1 unit, 500 milliliters of blood over 15 to 20 minutes. If a similar blood loss occurs in a much shorter time, the person may rapidly develop symptoms of hypovolemic shock. Consider age and pre-existing health. Like babies, older people, who've got to blood out more, they'll bleed out quicker. Serious condition, bleeding, significant mechanism of injury. Patient has a poor general appearance and is calm. Signs and symptoms of shock, significant blood loss, rapid blood loss, uncontrolled bleeding. What's a significant MOI that can cause external bleeding?
Gunshot wound.
Boom. What? Yeah, there we go. You said inhale? Yeah, that's real good. Arterial bleeding. Pressure causes blood to spurt and makes bleeding difficult to control. Typically bright red and spurts in time with the pulse. Venous bleeding is a dark red, flows slowly or rapidly depending on the size of the vein, does not spurt, it's easier to manage. Ryan's going to talk about how to treat bleeding. So like arterial, direct pressure is probably going to be put on a tourniquet. Venous bleeding, direct pressure is probably going to help for sure. This capillary bleeding is going to like just kind of ooze, that's your paper cuts. Dark red oozes, but steadily but slowly. See the different little pictures. This one will be arterial bleeding, so it'll be squirting out every time with the pulse. It'll be observed like heart pressure. This is venous bleeding. Besides that, it's capillary, but still oozes out. And then this is capillary. Bleeding tends to stop rather quickly within about 10 minutes. When skin is broken, blood flows rapidly. The cut at the end of the vessel begins to narrow, reducing the amount of bleeding that a clot forms. Bleeding will not stop if the clot does not form. Patient lacks blood-bound factors. Bleeding may occur spontaneously. All injuries, no matter how trivial or potentially serious, cases can be transported immediately. These are patients with hemophilia, so like any kind of cut could be on the scalp. Internal bleeding can be very serious because it's not easy to dissect, like I said, immediately. Injury or damage to internal organs commonly results in extensive internal bleeding and can cause hypobleeding shock. So like yeah, not all the time you can see internal bleeding. Oh no, internal bleeding. Possible conditions causing internal bleeding are stomach ulcers, lacerated liver, ruptured spleen, and broken leg. High energy mechanism injury should increase your index of suspicion for serious unstable injuries. Internal bleeding is possible whenever the MOI suggests that severe forces affect the body. Blood trauma, penetrating trauma. Give me an example of blood trauma. Give me penetrating trauma. Fuck. Do you guys know what decap is? Anyone? No? Okay.
What is that?
Want to give it a shot? No? Alright. So D's deformities, C's contusions, A's abrasions, E's punctures, E is burns, T is tenderness, L is lacerations, and S is smoke. That's a good acronym. Now you guys should write that down. Or it's probably in the book or whatever. But yeah, decap ETLS, so guys just know that. Internal bleeding is not always caused by trauma. Non-traumatic causes include bleeding ulcers, bleeding from colon, ruptured ectopic pregnancy, and aneurysm.
Alright, that's it. Yep. You're good.
Good job.
Yeah, they get
Mark?
Falcon. You can call me Falcon or Ryan, but my paramedic class, they sometimes call me Steve or Urkel. So for my past employers, I have 6 years of experience as an EMT since 2017. I work for Los Angeles County, and National Forest, CSUN, and my current employer is UCLA, which is really possible Los Angeles. So, don't let the years fool you. I still forget a lot of things in EMT. I still learn every single day of it. And my paramedic class seemed like I messed up a couple of times, but I still try my best in each situation, okay? All right, so I'm doing bleed part 2. It's gonna be my whole, bleed part 2, so in summary, we're gonna do interventions learn about different types of bleeds, all right? How to stop a bleed and signs and symptoms of internal bleeding. All right, let's get this show on the road. All right, so some overview, so signs and symptoms of bleeding, patient assessment. So we're gonna do what we do is a rapid or focus exam. We'll go through it in detail later. External bleed interventions, different types of bleeds, which Jordan already covered, and scenarios. So I'm not gonna be calling on paramedic class, I'll be calling on the EMTs, all right? So I like to do setting questions, so let's be ready for that. All right, here's the signs, symptoms, and internal bleeding. You have pain, swelling. It's almost like your decaf HLS, right? Well, bruising your contusions, right? Swelling is part of it. Melena, that's dark tardy stools, and then that's a sign of upper GI bleed. And yeah, and adhesives. You guys know what that is? Vomiting blood. Well, actually, you can have me a lot. Alright, and when you lose a lot, you lose syncope, alright? You faint. Alright, now what type of shot would a bleed considered? What? That's okay, that's down to type, but there's like 3 main shots. What is it? Oh, that's just when your body's trying to perfuse, maintain perfusion. But no. How about one more try? Yes, hypovolemic, yes, because you're losing a lot of fluid, right? Okay. What's 2 other types, main ones? I struggle with it too, dude. Don't worry. The second one is distributing shock. That's more anaphylaxis, and you got cardiogenic that involves the pump failure. All right, what are the signs of an internal bleeding? About bruising, contusion? Yeah, right. Okay. How about one more? Give me one more. How about these 3 right here? There we go. Yeah.
What's a gray turn sign?
Great Turner sign, Collins sign.
I'll actually look it up. You look it up. I'll come back to you. What is a symptom for internal bleeding? What's the symptom?
Nausea.
Symptoms, okay, report specifically what he asked, symptom, not sign.
Dizziness.
Yeah, you can feel it, yeah. So what's the difference of a sign and a symptom?
Symptom you feel, sign you see.
So one at a time, I want to raise the hand.
Symptom they could feel, and then sign we could see.
Yes, great.
So objective and subjective, correct?
All right. What's another term for shock? What's actually the medical terminology for shock? Yeah, it's right on the board.
Yeah.
So you got altered mental status, which is AMS, and you got weakness, faintness, or dizziness, and changing skin color. What's a linked sign for a skin color? What's the name of that? That turns bluish?
Cyanosis.
Cyanosis. Good job. How about later signs of hyperconfusion? So you got this, so you got moist, so it's like diaphoretic. That's what you're trying to say with moist, clammy skin. Alright, later signs. Shallow, rapid breathing. What type of mask would you use for shallow, rapid breathing?
Non-breathing.
PVM, yeah, because it's shallow, right? It's not retaining enough oxygen of it. It actually when we need more CO2. Slightly dilate pupils and can't fill. A refill is more than 2 seconds, alright? And ALOC is altered level of conscious. We'll go over that later on, okay? So here's our different types of class of blood loss. It goes from class 1 to 4. Treat class 1 and 2 as compensating shock because your body actually is trying to work its best to compensate for lost blood and try to maintain homeostasis and perfusion throughout the body. When you come to class 3 and 4, that's where it becomes decompensating shock, okay? Like your body's failing to maintain homeostasis. Any questions? How about you, Ryan? I know you have a question later. What? What? A little bit. All right.
Hey, Ryan, without looking at the board.
Oh my God.
At what point does your heart rate go above, let's say, 120?
120?
Or your pulse rate when it comes to hypovolemic shock?
Hypovolemic shock.
So is it going to be class 1, 2, 3, or 4?
I say more class 2.
Class 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's either 2 or 3.
Okay, now you can look at the board.
Oh, it's 3.
Alright. So, which one on the board would you say is decompensated shock?
Oh, class 3 to 4. That's a
So,
class 3
which
to
one's
start.
reversible shock then?
Irreversible? Probably. Class 4. Okay, definitely.
Copy that, thank you. Just want to make sure.
Showing with pulse pressure, will it be a normal or narrow?
So pulse pressure is another kind of shock. If your systolic and diastolic is within 25. So the best way to do that is you subtract systolic from the diastolic, and within 25, you're most definitely right to shock. I mean, it's significant.
Any particular disease states where narrowing pulse pressure or widening pulse pressure is significant. Give me a couple.
You got Cushing's syndrome.
Okay, is that wide or narrow? Charles Cushing, by the way.
Yes.
Is that narrow or wide?
It's a 3.
Yeah. Metacardia, wide, and three back. Right? AUP. Now narrowing pulse pressure.
Narrowing is more
What's the next trial?
I forgot about Dextron.
What's the next trial, guys? What do you think? KVD, what else? Bubble arch now?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Quite often you'll hear when you auscultate the heart, you'll hear it's called Hayman's crunch. You'll hear with each beat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alright, so here's the compensating and here's the decompensated shock sign of it. I would take a picture because you might be tested on this, saying what's the early signs of shock and later signs. Oh, I don't have your phone. Yeah.
Just write down the table.
Yeah. You're good? Let's take a picture. Any more questions? Alright, scene size of mnemonic. So, have you guys been over Pittman? What's the P?
Personal safety,
What's the E?
environmental safety,
Alright, what's N?
number of patients,
N?
mechanism of injury or nature of illness, additional resources, inter-extrication or ceasefire.
Alright, so I'll give you guys a tip for N, dude. I always forget like our instructor, co-instructor Russ kind of tricked me, or actually he did trick me. When there's a patient on prone position, you always have to stabilize that because you don't know if it's an MOI or not. Okay? Primary system mnemonic. So what's GI? General impression. What do you start general impression?
After you've seen
Walk through the
size.
door, right? It's a difference between sick or not sick, right? transport this event, why not transport this person within 10 minutes? You have to, or they're gonna sign an AMA. Well, definitely not AMA. What's LLC?
Above consciousness.
And how you determine, and besides it awkward, because that's if they're unconscious, what questions do you ask to determine AO time?
PPT.
How about raise their hands?
Like person, place, time, event. Like how many quarters are in a dollar, president.
So it depends on what county you do AO time 4 or 3, right? When we go later, we'll learn what X is, but most time it's ABC. So what's ABC?
Airway, breathing, circulation.
Does it sometimes from actually bleeding, does it sometimes go to CAB sometimes? Yeah, circulation will uncover bleed, because what if you're doing compressions and you have, every time you do compressions, there's spurting bleeding. Which one you go first? CPR? Or you're gonna cover the bleed? Yeah. Why?
Life threat.
You're losing more perfusion, you're losing more oxygenated blood, right? What's the difference between venous, arterial, and capillary bleed? So raise a hand. Wow. Any venous in it. Veins, but what type of vein? What are the signs of venous leak? You guys know what the signs of it? Jordan went through it. I know you did pretty fast, but dark flow and setting. Okay. How about arterial, but not venous?
I think part of the problem is blood is gonna like gush out with the pulse.
Pulse, what color is it? Or what, term? Huh? Right, we got a yes. About capillary. Dark. Oh yeah, it could be like fingertips, capillary bleed. It's be less significant than venous. Which of these bleeds is the most difficult to control?
Arterial.
Arterial? Why?
Because of the gushing.
Okay. And what do you think is the intervention for arterial bleed?
Tourniquet.
Okay. How long should you apply pressure for external bleed? It kind of, okay, so let's say venous bleed. It should be like at least 5 to 10 minutes. Because what occludes bleeding most of the time? It's inside the blood.
Pallets. Pallets.
Yeah, or platelets, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, that's it. So this is what the X stands for, exaggerating hemorrhage. All right. This is basically your arterial bleeding most of the time, or initial blood loss of greater than 40% of body composition. That's long. You normally see it as like probably in car accidents most of the time. All right. Next, you got airway. I show the patient airway. It's always one check if they're breathing normally, shallow, fast, tachypnea, bradynia, right? Breathing is therefore adequate respiration to provide high flow or assisted with ventilation with an arm breather or BVM, right?
If you said the multi-treated bleeding is 40%, how do you know how much blood somebody has in them? How do you calculate?
You can't really calculate, it's just like the sign of it, because you don't have really time to like analyze the whole blood. Because you can look small parts of the blood, and they look a lot. What?
What would my breathing be like if I'm shot?
Depends, compensating or decompensating?
Oh.
Alright, so compensating more tachypnea because your sympathetic response begins to activate, right, the fight or flight. But when you start decompensating, you're going to breathe a lot faster.
Faster.
Or tachypnea, what do you mean tachypnea? And did I answer your questions or no?
What about irreversible?
Irreversible?
Yeah.
They're going to be more unconscious. There actually is more unconscious. They're very shallow breathing.
Okay.
Any more questions? Anyone? All right. Circulation, check for rate, rhythm, quality. Let's just say the beating times is 60 beats per minute, and it's an adult male, 18 years of age. Is that irregular? Regular? Within normal limits, right? All right. What about if it's over 100? Is it irregular?
No, depending what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, it would be tachycardia. How about Freddie? That's more regular. And check for patient's skin size every time. So, like I said, cyanosis or cyanotic fluid, but that's a lick sign. But the fastest way to see cyanosis, if you put down your lips and your mucous membranes are blue, so action passes. Okay. Check for capture.
He does that. I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said cyanosis is that's a skin sign, right?
Cyanosis.
Yeah. If cyanosis is related to what you're saying is a loss of blood, right? Blood volume.
Yes.
Then what's pale?
Pale.
What is that pale skin sign?
Be more. Oh my god. So, pale.
Would you? Is it feasible to reason that cyanosis might be related more so to lack of oxygen due to, I don't know, respiratory distress issue, whereas pale might be a volume issue?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Cool. Carry on.
Transfer decision. Want to see if you want to transfer within 10 minutes or not, okay? Or as fast as possible. What's a capillary fill? What's normally a capillary fill's seconds? 2. If it's greater?
If it's less than 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's all right. I understand. Well, we always went through this. What's S?
Signs and symptoms.
Signs and symptoms.
Allergies.
Allergies. M.
Medication.
E.
Pertinent medical history.
About L.
Last oriented
E.
events leading to injury.
And so OPQRS. Have you guys gone over this yet?
Yeah.
How was the O?
Onset.
E.
Well,
I about people in the back. I hear people in the front. So what's P?
provoke.
All right. How about Q?
Quality.
All right.
Radiation.
Excuse me. EMT student in the back of the. So what's R?
Me?
Huh? You don't know? It's radiation, radiating, okay? How about S?
Severity. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Please close that. So you had no time after class or during class? Just keep going, right?
Okay, T, time. Okay. Alright, so what's that? I know the standpoint OPQRT is more medical, saying the pain related. So what actually does and it could be an injury, what could cover both for NY and NY, for internal bleeding? And I'll give you a hint, it's carrying pain. What could fulfill MOI and NOI? Yes. How do you get an MOI for an aortic aneurysm? Could be any traumatic. AAA. What about NOI? NOI. What causes AAA for nature of illness? Atherosclerosis? High blood pressure, right? Hypertension. All right, so investigate the chief complaint. So how often you want to reassess the chief complaint?
Every 5 minutes.
Every 5 minutes, yeah. Stability. Yeah. And what's stable patient? How many minutes you check for a stable patient?
15.
All right. So assess the patient entirely. So rapid body exam. How you guys know we're rapid and focused? Oh, that's still on. Okay. Can I go over yours or no?
No, just for the sake of time, that's
Okay.
not confusing.
Alright, sample history, ask your patient about blood thinning medications. What's the blood thinning medication that you guys can do? Aspirin. Determine the amount of blood loss. Like Ryan said, you can't, he asked a question about it, but you can't really determine. A small pool of blood could be equivalent, not equivalent, but it looks like it would be a lot. Is the patient unresponsive to obtaining history from a medical alert tag or a nearby bystander? And Jordan went through this, so let's go over it again. What's D? D?
Contusions,
A?
abrasions,
B?
punctures, penetrations, burns,
Alright, E?
tenderness,
L?
lacerations,
F?
swelling,
Alright, what would be bruised in the part?
swelling,
What,
contusions,
out of these letters, which one's bruising?
C,
Right. Alright, report vitals, we want to get your baseline. Start visiting at, is this patient, is he compensating? Is he stable, unstable, determined, right? Attach and use appropriate monitoring devices. What can you guys monitor device? How can you monitor a patient with a device? Connecting to? Okay. How can you determine SpO2? Alright, sometimes for a short and rapid transfer, they may not be time to conduct secondary session. Sometimes you have to do a load and go or do diesel. Or that's what Taylor says. Three substitute plates, signs and symptoms of internal bleeding. If they're unstable, every 5, they're stable every 15. Right? And always documentation. Alright, transport decision. If you guys went over the Platinum 10 or the Golden Hour, what's the Platinum 10? Yes, on scene less than 10 minutes. That's your deployment objective. You want to be on scene for 10 minutes. How about a Golden Hour?
where they have the highest chance of survival.
Highest chances for survival within what? Within an hour, right?
Yeah.
Alright, follow standard precautions. So what's that? Your PPE, right? And here's the interventions that we'll talk about. There are other methods: direct pressure, elevation, splints, tourniquets, hemostatic dressing, and wound packing. So I actually brought a tourniquet. Have you guys played around with this yet? Yeah. No? Anybody want to try it? Who wants to be my patient up here? That shit hurts. Alright. Alright. So this is Jose. Alright.
Do the leg.
Put on his neck.
Go leg.
So this is our president. He's a fine gentleman, right? He's listening. Sit down. Alright, I went over through how this tourniquet works, so I'll go over there right now, okay? After.
He's bleeding.
Alright. So what's good? You just take this. What are you doing? What are you doing? And you put this up, alright? I'll tell you the indications for a tourniquet and how many inches above the wound has to be, okay? Alright? Yeah, I put it tight. I won't put it tight for you. Alright.
Should the tail go facing outside or inside?
The tail?
Yeah.
Outside.
Why? Why?
I just guessed.
It should go facing outside because it's closer to you, right? You don't want to start cinching against someone else's body. You want to cinch against yourself, right?
That's true.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you. I know I need to do it right now. I know the tail's outside, but it's just demonstrating purposes. I see another. Oh, dude, only 2 hours. 2 hours. Because you think recall when you get to later in trauma, it's just like a crust injury. If you have it on for too long, potassium will build up and it will cause a heart attack. Yeah. Right there. And you want to put document the time. I don't want to do it too tight for you. Okay? And once you put it on, the best way to look it's working, before you put it on, you want to check the pulse. And after the tourniquet, if you don't feel a pulse, that's when it's working. Thank you. All right, I'll pass it around.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, What? Oh, yes. Where are you from? Oh, it's like a question too, when you have long, you have to look at potassium. Alright, blood pressure is the most common and effective way, and it's also the fastest one. The longest one is most likely a drink because that's the last resort. And when it's direct pressure, you want to raise up high. The reason behind that because it will stop the bleeding faster. And it's just like left lateral position, right? If you go on the left side, more blood circulates to the heart, more perfusion. And this is hemostatic dressing. I have no experience on this, but our military personnel probably did. Andrew or Randy, do you have any comments on that for hemostatic dressing?
I don't think you guys do the
Oh, no. But do you have any experiences with it? You want to share?
Yeah, I mean, so, impregnated gauze is impregnated with a hemostatic agent that just promotes clotting. It burns if you're gonna use it, right? It generally goes packed into wounds. And that's something we do here in the civilian side. Make sure you wear gloves because it is activated by any liquid. Obviously, it works best on blood. Outside of that, I mean, we won't use it.
Thank you. Alright, tourniquets is the last resort. Air splints. So it's just like splints, but I have no experience with air. I'll just rig it a bit. But for rigged, I should have brought actually a box for it. But normally, if there's a bump protrusion, you want to wrap gauze around the site because you want to like cause more harm and can't be stable. But before you put splints on, you want to check PMS, or another term as CMS. What's CMS and PMS? Pulse motor sentry, right? Right before you put on the splint, you want to feel there's a pulse, right? Motor, you want to move the fingers. And sentry is if they can feel. Of course, you have them look down and say, hey, what finger I'm touching? They say, oh, middle finger, because you see it. You want to make them look up, right? All right, and pelvic bladder. When I learned it, it didn't call pelvic bladder, but it was junctional splinting. I have no experience with that either. Ed?
So, I'm not here.
Oh, okay, sorry. Or, okay, well, your instructor will talk to you about after this lecture.
What else can we use as a pelvic blinder or a junctional split?
Junction or a pelvic bladder? Oh my god.
It's in our toolkit. Sorry, it's in our kits.
I do not know. Oh, Jose? You use a sheet. Oh, I think it's tie around to stabilize the pelvic. Okay.
Oh, you gotta use that too.
Oh, the kid. Yeah. You use your bill. Yeah, I forgot about that. Alright. Alright, how long can a tourniquet be in place? 2 hours. What intervention is the fastest performed? And which intervention is last alternative for bleed?
Tourniquet.
Tourniquet? Yep. Several conditions. So you got skull fracture, facial injuries, infections, high blood pressure, coagulation disorders. So what's a coagulation disorder?
You can't clap.
Go ahead. Yes, what's hemophilia? Lack of platelets, right? Yeah. And cancer and epistaxis, so nosebleed. So before nosebleed, you want to have them lean back and squeeze the nose, or lean forward? Forward, why forward?
Kill the blood clot with red.
Oh wait, what happened?
So you kept the blood like clot back here or some shit.
And what would that cause?
And an airway problem.
Air. Right answer. Aspiration. Actually, and have you guys worn battle signs? Huh? So basically, if it's a skull fracture, it's right behind the ear. Yeah. Alright, So this is a cerebrospinal fluid. Normally, if you put there's leakage from here and you press it, it's like a yolk shape, right? It's blood in the middle and it's a yolk that's around there, slant thin. Okay. And it's the biggest sign for a school injury. And also, if you look at the pupils, and they're both are not coagulating with each other, it's a sign of school injury or nervous system issue. Alright. This is used to require surgery and other hospital procedures. Try to keep the patient calm and reassured. Provide high flow oxygen, maintain body temp. And thank you.
You guys, for the classroom. The door's locked, so here.
So we done with both chapters or just one?
Just the one.
Just one.
It's the one that says do not duplicate. Okay, sorry guys, that was horrible. Bill's got his work cut out for him, or I can do Bill a solid and take care of this lecture for you guys. So, bleeding is probably one of the most important things we go over, because why? People die from that a lot quicker than other etiologies. If you think about an ice skater or someone who's playing ice hockey, right? Falls forward, the blade slices someone else's carotids, guess what's going to happen? 10, 15 second blood on the ice, right? So like, that's like truly a life-threatening bleeding. If you think about it, for PHCLS, pre-hospital life support, instead of like ABCs, right, like the way we normally do in our assessments, we add the X, right, for external hemorrhaging, for exsanguinations, by the way he said exsanguine, I forget how to say it. He mispronounced it. But
Again, it's 3 E's, right?
Yeah. So that's why bleeding is really important. And one aspect, one aspect of bleeding I think they forgot to mention was wound packing, which is essentially, you guys remember the Las Vegas shooting where there was like 500 people that shot or something? It's terrible, right? Real crappy, shitty event. From the shitty things that happen, we learn. We get to learn about like how long a tourniquet can last on a person before we're talking about amputations. What can we do to control bleeding in those areas where you can't put a tourniquet, right? So that's where they came up with wound packing, where it's part of like the Stop the Bleed program. And that basically is just literally just taking a bunch of gauze pads and just putting it in the open space where the hemorrhage is coming from. As far as tourniquets go, again, from the shitty things we learn, like the Iraq War and such, we learn more about how long we can actually have a tourniquet on without having to cut off limbs. Because when I first started, putting on a tourniquet was basically like buying person amputation. It was like one of those things where it's like, we tourniquet on, cool, they're gonna probably cut off your arm, right? That was the thought. But then as we're sending our guys over to Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff, they're putting tourniquets on for about 24 hours. 24 hours and the limb is still viable after the fact. But of course, medications to counteract the potassium buildup and whatnot. You don't just remove the tourniquet. As a rule of thumb, when you put a tourniquet on, don't take it off. Right? What happens is you're gonna release the potassium buildup that's in that extremity, and potentially kill the person in that manner. So rule of thumb, tourniquet goes on, put the time down, right? Put it somewhere where you're not gonna forget. Maybe the patient's forehead, right? Put it marker. But like just so that they know how long that thing's been on, because we can have it up to 24 hours, right? So just a couple things I want him to hit. Junctional binders, you mentioned that kind of, right? Those are binders that go those are like splints. They go on like your arm, like the shoulder, and your I don't know, for lack of a better term, like your pectoralis major, right? Your break those muscles that come through here. You know, it's like these two pads that compress to help stop that bleeding from those cardiac control areas. Obviously, we don't put tourniquets on people's necks, right? For obvious reasons. So what is another manner we can control the bleed, especially for like a venous or like an arterial bleed of of your neck.
Packing?
Not packing per se, you're in the right spot, bro. Like someone got stabbed, right? Like someone comes up behind, chains him right, and is holding his neck.
Oh,
like this.
pressure?
Kind of, but how much direct pressure are you gonna put on someone's neck on the carotid? You see what I'm saying? What is another tool that we can use to help prevent air embolisms and stop the bleeding? What kind of gauze? You're on the right path. What kind of gauze?
I mentioned this earlier, guys, there's 3 places where you need acoustic dressing today, or where. You didn't use the right word, Eddie.
You're close, man. You're super close because I think it's that specific oil-based gauze, right? That the petroleum gauze dressing. It goes you want to make sure you put your gloves on, like that thing's sticky, right? Plus all the bleeding that's going on. Put it on, tape on 3 sides, right? So, just a couple of things I wanted to touch upon before I left you guys.
You know, I've had quite a few of these neck wounds like that, and one thing that works pretty well in addition to the acoustic dressing is a bulky dressing with a C-collar.
Bulky dressing with C-collar?
Yeah, because then you're putting pressure circumferentially, but you still have compromise in there.
Because I would also say like, maybe a smaller knife? Or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that,
but
like,
again, you still want acoustic dressing, you know, but again,
I've also-
and their head down if you're thinking
I
air.
used tegaderms in the past. You guys know what tegaderms are?
Yeah.
Like,
It's the same thing on that chest seal there. It's,
on your axle.
Yeah, it's a lopsided material.
Yeah, it's just so that you know the air embolus, right? Especially with the jugular veins go directly to the superior vena cava, goes right to the right atrium. Big vessels, huge vessels, right? So potential for air embolisms going down the pipe, right? Helping the person meet their maker in a terrible way, right? So yeah, and just one more time, I just want to apologize for the terrible exchange of all my students.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
For the packing, when we, are to like someone has like bacteria, which is when the person is homeless and you have had.
I think that's more like flat face, right? Whereas like the gauze pads, you just kind of like you take like the 4x4s and you just put them in like that, or you're just really shoving them in. You're not like necessarily like facing them like nice and stuff like to put a
You're
band.
talking about using quick clot as well with
Quick
the
clot? Yeah. So that's
the
a
desiccant,
different,
yeah.
that's a different one. Is that what you're talking about? Oh, so the powder-based one. So that you open up. Be careful. If you inhale that, God forbid, ideally the blood itself should make it adhere and make it like stand. But if you're gonna use water or something, just keep that in mind. Like if you have like that dusty film thing in the air, it's gonna suck for your airway. So that's why the PSI, right? Gowns and gowns, gloves, goggles, and obviously gloves most important, right? Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go read my kids. So.
You wanna give them a break and then have them come back and they're gonna do the next sector? Or is there-
Well, that's it.
They're just gonna do, okay, I'll do the
Yeah,
next
that
one.
was it for them.
All right.
I don't want to put you guys through more.
All right. Guys, take a break, come back at 11:45, and we'll start the lecture, okay? By the way, when we take the BTCC lecture, they'll mention major vascular disruption in a vessel like a femoral artery. They will exsanguinate in 3 to 5 minutes, okay?
Thank you, sorry about that. We're putting your flash on, I think, so.
Okay. And again, keep in mind with trauma, you may, depending on whether the patient is alert or not, if the trauma patient's alert, what type of exam is it? It's a focus exam, right? The trauma patient's unconscious, the medical patient's unconscious, it's a comprehensive or rapid exam, right? Because he can't tell you what's wrong. Yeah.
Could you go through what is like a rapid and comprehensive? Because I know the student asked Ed to explain it,
Yeah.
but Ed said he's not here right now, so I don't know if you could.
Well, when you arrive on scene, in regards to a primary, right? Okay. So your primary, the patient's not conscious, he can't say my butt hurts or whatever, right? So at that point, you're gonna have to get down and do a quick head to toe, right? You palpate his scalp, look at his neck, look at his eyes, any blood, any surgical wounds, anything that would imply underlying problem. So at that point, you may find it's trauma, maybe he's got a knife wound in his back you missed, okay? Maybe he's got a surgical wound that gets protected, he's got a bypass surgery, or he's got to come to school bus, his belly's like this, he's got liver disease, okay? So the rapid exam is just basically that, it's a rapid exam. You're looking for anything that you could not pick up in the primary, all right? So you're not, you know, again, you kind of slip and slip, it's more of a exam, trauma exam, if you will, because he can't tell you what's going on, okay? So you're gonna palpate his scalp, look at his eyes, his neck, bearings, look at everything, right? We used to call it strip and flip in the streets, right? You could tell by what rescue had seen somebody, what squad, because they all cut pants differently. So when they arrive on scene, they knew who saw that picture earlier, if they'd seen him earlier. Well, probably the same problem. A lot of times you see people that are malingers, if you will, okay? They call it the 3 hot. The term here on the street is 3 hots in a cup. 3 hot meals, you know, a place to sleep. So again, that's what your rapid trauma is. You're gonna do a quick comprehensive exam, surgical wounds, eyes, mouth, anything that could be a potential life that you missed in that primary, all right? And again, you may have a trauma patient, you may have you may have both. Okay, quite often I've had many traffic accidents where somebody had a heart attack or seizure while driving the vehicle and ran into somebody else. Okay, soft tissue injury, again, recognition management of wounds, burns, electrical, chemical, and thermal. The big issue with electrical burns is that that current takes the path of least resistance, so it travels on bone and muscles and tissue. So one of the long-term effects with electrical burns is cataracts, by the way, yeah.
So like, if someone was to get ran over, is that considered as trauma?
Someone's what?
Like if someone was to get run over?
Yeah, that's trauma, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's trauma. I mean, again, you're dealing with a trauma patient. Now, let's say you go in a traffic accident and somebody has ran into the vehicle and he's older when you get there. You have to make a determination whether that is trauma, medical, or both. Again, we're doing the same thing here. What's the same in medical as in trauma? Your primary, right? That's simple, okay? So you're gonna have to deal with all his life threats, get him out, and take a better look at him. Maybe he becomes alert now, and you determine it's just trauma. Or maybe the mechanism doesn't support his being altered, so you're thinking medical, okay? There's a little critical thinking that has to come into play here, right? And, you know, you don't, not all the answers are gonna be in the book. You have to, you know, critically think, what am I ruling out here? When a doctor, you come in with chest pain, he just doesn't go, heart, doesn't he? He looks at all kinds of stuff. You know, things that would be cardiac, and now we have more specific markers that'll tell you it's cardiac. But years ago, you come in, they had to rule out gallbladder disease and other issues based on the clinical findings, okay? So again, typically, your auto-ped would be trauma. Again, it could aggravate a medical problem as well. You never know. So it's important to understand you've got to, again, depth of knowledge. No depth of knowledge, no pass in action. It's just that simple. Okay? So that's why we always stress in that primary what? Any other life threats, right? So again, burns, chemical, electrical, chemical, and thermal. Again, electrical quite often, you're going to need a resource that has a monitor on scene. So you take a look at the cutoff, they have arrhythmias when they have an electrocution. I had a case in Sunland Boulevard where this guy had jury rigged this Doughboy pool with a pump, and he hadn't bonded or grounded the electrical. And we get there, and all these kids are yelling and screaming in the pool, and one adult, and you can see the electrical current in the pool. You know, the whole pool's energized, right? So we had to go over basically and knock the box off to disconnect the power to get all these people out of the triage, and then they ought to be monitored, and they ought to be transported, okay? But, again, electrical, if you see something that you think is energized, it's always energized and put them at once, right? Again, that's why they teach firemen and DWP people to touch stuff this way. Not this way, because you think it this way, you bought it, you ain't getting on. All right, so again, you touch it this way. It's just like when you check, you know, a hot door, you always take your glove off, check the back, because that's more sensitive to heat. Okay? The things you learn to keep it from being little stupid or dead. Chemical burns, again, what's the issue with any chemical burn? What do you always do? If it's powder, you brush it off before you irrigate with water, because sometimes water will activate the chemicals, okay? In fact, usually you'll see on your NFPA placard, there'll be a W with a line to it. That means no water, okay? Then maybe water that, okay? And again, you want a wound like that, there want to be probably 15 to 20 minutes, copious amounts of water, okay? And of course, thermal burns is no longer, it's superficial, it used to be first, it's now superficial. It used to be second, which was blistering, now it's partial thickness. And third degree burn was third degree, now it's full thickness, okay? So those terms are used interchangeably sometimes. Very important when you take your state boards to write down, we'll go over the rule of nines a little bit. It varies depending on the age of the patient. So when you take your national, they give you usually a piece of scratch paper. If you were smart and you wanted to pass, I would write down the Glasgow-Coma scale and all the numbers and what they mean. I'd write down the AVGAR score, which you haven't got to yet. That's an OB. Okay? And I would write down the burns percentage. Okay? And again, like they'll say 18% on a torso, a male, like, you know, an adult, 18%. Again, if they say upper torso, it's 9. Okay, so they'll try and talk you that way by the way they word things, so be very careful. And again, we're talking about chemical burns of the eyes. So again, different types of injuries or pathophysis issues and avulsion, that's a tear. They can be relatively small or huge. Usually issue those, you want to lay it back into place. You don't cut off the tab, you leave that for the doctor, right? Bite wounds, again, you're injecting material from the skin or outside environment into the wound. Quite often, if it's a bone fracture, again, anytime you see a fractured bone, if there's a wound over that skin, it's considered to be an open fracture. We'll cover that later on. But that comes up all the time when the test. Okay. Bite wounds are nasty, very nasty. Lacerations, again, ragged lacerations. Incision is a nice clean cut. And of course, functional. I had a guy down in Hollywood. He was a dope. He's a heroin user. And he's a day worker. They're using a big auger to drill holes for telephone poles. He's standing here like this, leaning on a shovel, and he falls into the auger. He gloved the entire front of his body, including his balls. Okay. He was in a lot of pain. So, or maybe there was one. There was one ball left. You could say he had balls. That. You know that you can actually get prosthetic devices for your animals you have neutered now? So when you take your pit bull and get his balls chopped off, they actually have fake balls you can put in there, so he still looks bad. I'm serious. In fact, one of our firemen, he had a testicular cancer, and he wanted the doctor to put in a metal ball so he could say balls of steel. The best thing was when the good doctor told him, son, I got some bad news, they're actually made of glass. So from that point on, we called him Glasscock. Careful what you ask for, right? Okay. So again, burns, we talked about radiation. When you think about radiation, and I make a note here, not that it's important, it's only a test question, okay? So radiation, you think of three things: time, distance, shielding. That's all you gotta know. Time, distance, shielding. And know that gamma is the worst one, right? So anytime you have a radiation exposure, it's time, distance, shielding, okay? And we'll talk a little bit about crush syndrome. Think about, again, the three spaces. What were they? Looks like a sign of another pop quiz, huh? What were the three spaces? What were the three spaces? Doctors. Dr. Cruz. What are the three spaces? Dr. Ibarra. What are the three spaces? Dr. Ashley, with three spaces. Cell, vessel, interstitial, right? Where's most of the juice? In the cell, right? That's not important. I don't see a reason to write it down. That pen's awfully heavy. You probably get a cramp doing that. I understand.
So cell, vessel, and
Cell, vessel, and tissue. The three spaces. How many times do you think I said that? I don't know how to keep track of all this and just say, hey, yeah. Tell me number one. How many times? Oh, come on. If Russ was here, you'd be bleeding all over the floor. You'd be biting chunks of your ass for that. So again, cell, vessel, interstitial space, or tissue. Where is most of the juice? In the cell. The potassium Ed was talking about, okay? The magnesium, that's all where? In the cell. When you mash muscle, all the myoglobin, the protein is now in the vascular space. And now gets to your kidneys. Your kidneys shut down. It's like throwing jello into a colander, okay? And that's essentially crush syndrome, okay? All that tissue's been mashed up and the fluid's left the cell. It's in the vascular space. You have all these dysrhythmias and problems with perfusion because of all these toxins that are produced, okay? You're in a metabolic acidosis, okay? So important to understand crush syndrome. Other ones important to understand is compartmental syndrome. Okay, so electrical we talked about, chemical, and again thermal and radiation. And crush syndrome. Okay, soft injuries are common, simple cut or scrape, a playground injury, okay, if you will. They can be serious or life-threatening. They can, again, you have some underlying issues with internal damage. It's like the old Chiquita banana. When there's a bruise on the outside, I'll be a bruise on the inside, right? Do not become distracted by dramatic open wounds. Do not neglect airway, airway issues. A lot of times these things are really distracting you about tunnel vision. The crowd's going, hey dummy, why aren't you dealing with that? The guy's altered, he's incontinent, he's posturing, and you're dicking around with a tib-fib fracture? You ought to be kicked in the ass. Because that's not going to kill him. You can leave the tib-fib unseen if you want. It's not going to kill him. What's going to kill him is the motherboard's jacked up, right? He's got swelling in his head. He's got a hernia in his brainstem. So that happens a lot with soft tissue injuries. I think I told you about the captain that wanted me to get on my partner because the captain was an idiot, okay? He didn't understand that he did this act, so wasn't going to kill him. So again, soft tissue of the body can be injured to a variety of mechanisms. Again, blood trauma, penetrating trauma. What's barotrauma? Barotrauma. What's baro mean? Pressure. You have baroreceptors, don't you? You have chemoreceptors and baroreceptors, okay? So baro simply means pressure, like altitude changes, okay? Like I've mentioned many times before, we're here at essentially a little above sea level. So the pressure on your skin, on the outside And the inside is 14.7 pounds per square inch. And it's calculated based on barometric pressure, less water vapor pressure, okay? When you go above 20,000 feet, the oxygen content is still the same. The pressure of the gas has changed. So the ability of that gas to saturate tissue is gonna vary. Plus, because of the change in pressure, you no longer have 14.7 on the inside and outside. You may have 8 or 10 on the inside. So you basically just blow up. Okay? Your lungs just blow up. Your head blows up. Okay? Either job. And of course, burns. Again, soft tissue trauma is common form of injury, death and trauma related to hemorrhage or infection. Soft tissue injuries can often be prevented with simple protective actions. The right safety equipment, things like that. The skin's the body's first line of defense against external forces and infection. The skin is relatively tough but susceptible to injury. Range from simple bruises and abrasions to serious lacerations and amputations. And all instances, EMT must control bleeding, prevent further contamination, and decrease the risk of infection, protect wounds from further damage, apply dressings and bandages to various parts of the patient's body. Again, skin varies in thickness, thinner and very young by old people, and thicker and, thinner on eyelids, lips, ears, scalp, and back, and soles of feet. The skin has two principal layers, epidermis and dermis. Epi meaning tough external layer, and dermis meaning inner layer. Cross section of your skin. Again, when you get down to the fascia there, that's pretty deep. Again, a full thickness burn would be down to the fascia. Okay, and again, typically it's a painless burn because you burn all the nerves and stuff. Okay. Skin covers all external surfaces of the body. Bodily openings are lined with mucous membranes, usually lumbar epithelial type tissues, provide a barrier against bacterial infection or invasion. Skin serves many functions: barrier infection, sensory organ, helps regulate body temperature. How does it do that? Sweating, so vasoconstriction, vasodilation, right? What's sweating? Sympathetic or parasympathetic?
Parasympathetic.
Actually, parasympathetic, but it's caused by this stuff. So again, how the body regulates temperature. What organ in the body regulates temperature? Hypothalamus, right? And again, maintain fluid balances, okay? Again, there's a tremendous amount of fluid loss just in exhale air. And again, your body's constantly shifting fluids from those spaces we talked about. What are those spaces again? Cell, interstitial space, or if you want, just tissue. Okay. So when I say third spacing, what's going on with that patient? What's he got? Edema. What were the 3 reasons for edema? Dr. Jacqueline. Sitting pretty looking back there. What were the 3 reasons for edema? Cardiac, renal, liver, right? And then that, we talked about fetal edema. Granny, you put your fingers in Granny's shit on her ankles, and it fits. You take a look at your watch, it's plus 3 minutes, plus 3 seconds, so it's plus 3 edema. Again, cardiac, renal, liver, right? That's a nice sound, you know what I mean? Is there a trailer park also? Okay,
Cardiac renal
more
liver.
caffeine for me.
Cardiac renal liver. For the reasons for
Too many peanut coladas the other day.
Let all that sweeten or what?
That's salad sweet. So again, any break in the skin will allow bacteria to enter, increases possible infection, fluid loss, and loss of temperature control. Okay? And again, that clear fluid you see is serous material and platelets. They're trying to form a clot, and that's why blood cells try to protect that area. 3 times as large tissue injuries, soft tissue injuries, closed injuries, open injuries, and burn. Pathophys, again, cessation of bleeding is your primary concern. Blood's natural propensity is to clot, okay? Stasis. And again, what type of tissue is blood? It is considered connective tissue. Even the paramedic class knows that. How is that special? So again, new layer of cells then are moved into the damaged area. New blood vessels form. This is called anastomoses, by the way. When you have capillaries or nerves that are damaged, if you look at them in a microscope, they will start to grow out into these areas to grow together. The process is called anastomosis, okay? Quite often you get the term, the doctor says, well, gee, your grandma's pretty lucky. She had good collateral circulation, okay? So here's a lesion. Let's say you do like that. Let's say you've got vessels like this, right? Let's say you have an occlusive event here, a clot here. Well, if it's a chronic condition the body's had time, sometimes decades, the capillary networks will start to go around that lesion, okay? And reestablish blood flow. That happens a lot in heart muscle, okay? It's called Babesian circulation, but the vessels will try and grow around that lesion to reestablish blood flow.
And that causes like a burst?
What?
And that can cause like a burst?
No, we're talking at the micro, this is microvascular level. You're talking a major artery that could be an aneurysm or a vascular weakness. This is at the microscopic level, we're talking capillaries, right? So when you have an occlusive area in the vessel, typically those capillaries of the body will only start to grow that vascular network around the lesion. The body's going to save its visible abs, okay? Again, so the next wound healing stage is inflammation. It gets hot, okay? New layer of cells is then moved into the damaged area. New blood vessels are formed in anastomoses. And collagen provides stability to damaged tissue or joints, new borders. Quite often, certain people are prone to keloid, okay, and it's a hyperplasic issue when they have overgrowth of connective tissue over a wound. It usually is. You see it in Southern Europeans pretty often. Hard not big that it's skin. And it'll look like a big little hypertrophic or big scar. Okay, contusion causes bleeding beneath the skin but does not break the skin. Okay, that's a contusion, aka a bruise, right? What's worse than a contusion? A hematoma, because that's blood underneath tissue or cavity. So that's much worse as a rule. And crushing injury occurs with a significant amount of force is applied to the body. A closed injury is when the area of the body is trapped for longer than 4 hours. Crush syndrome can develop. But like I said before, you're crushing all these cells. And all the intercellular, the products in the cell, are being squeezed out of the grape, and they're now in the vascular space. Your potassium, magnesium, and the muscle, the myoglobin, is broken down. Hope we're not on our phones, right? Compartmental syndrome results from swelling that occurs whenever injuries or, tissues are injured. This happens a lot with fractures, you see a lot of burns or sometimes trauma. Let's say you get a really bad circumflexural burn around the arm, okay? As the swelling gets more intense, the tissue starts to swell and some of it starts to shrink. Well, what happens to vascular compromise? You love vascular compromise, right? So you get an issue where you have a lot of inordinate amount of pain, you have decrease in strength, and it's hyperesthetic quite often. Just touching is very uncomfortable for them. The only way to treat that is the physician will take a scalpel and cut your arm open like a cheese weenie. They'll take a scalpel underneath the skin or a pair of scissors and cut the arm here like a cheese weenie so the tissue can expand, otherwise you'll lose your fingers. Okay, if you have compartmental syndrome and you get that kind of swelling, it's that intense, you can lose distal blood flow. And the patient, this is a long time ago, pre-HIPAA. This guy was given a medication to take. He was a diabetic, so he had a lot of neuropathy. He was given a medication to take into the cavernous spondylosum so the little buddy would stay the tension. Okay, so he could do the hokey pokey. Unfortunately, the old guy couldn't see too well either. Okay. And the doctor told him, by all means, it was an opiate alkaloid called Tafamidis, so real potent vasodilators, pre-Viagra, okay? So he thought if 0.2 is okay, 2's got to be kind of whoop ass, right? So he put 2 in that bad boy. He came in the ER that night so hard the cat couldn't scratch it. You could see your face in the shining skin, okay? This was bad. We tried everything to get that thing to go to parade rest. Couldn't do it. Had to take him to surgery, and the urologist took his scalpel, made 3 incisions in that thing to cut it open like a cheese weenie, wrapped it with Vaseline gauze. We put a pediatric blood pressure cuff on that bad boy. You have to pump that thing up every couple hours to evacuate the blood from the engorged organ. You can usually hear him down the hallway when you pump that bad boy up, okay? True story, you know. In fact, the treatment, by the way, for priapism, which is an erect organ, to this day, again, one of the reasons for priapism, head injury or sickle cell, which is better. Okay, and again, I had a couple patients like this. One guy down in the valley there, and he came in the yard. They take a 10 cc syringe with a 20 gauge needle on it. They stick it into the proximal end of the penis and the corpus spondylosum. They pull out 10 cc's of blood. It goes to free rest. They say there are sensory neurons in the proximal stalk, but it didn't look like it was comfortable to me. But that, to this day, that's still the best way to treat that kind of a problem. Okay. So again, there's different things you see. I had a guy take a glass martini rod. You ever see a glass rod they stir martinis with? He shoved that up his ureter, and then it broke. It's a bad news for that surgery, right? Because they got to go up the old, you know, they irrigate out the glass chips and stuff, you know. And glass, unfortunately, is really tough to see sometimes in the film. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So again, compartmental syndrome, closed injuries can also damage the internal organs. Also, all patients with closed injuries have serious other injuries. Again, like I said before, compartmental syndrome results from swelling that occurs whenever tissues are injured. It can be burns, infections, electrocutions, trauma. Okay. Severe closed injuries can damage the internal organs. Assess all patients with closed injuries for more serious kidney injuries. Again, open injuries, there are 4 types here they talk about. Abrasions, which are scrapes basically. Depending on the surface area of the iron, it can be a lot to a lot. Lacerations, emulsions, which are tears, and penetrating wounds. Again, the first one up there is your road rash, right? That's an abrasion. Alright? Again, decontaminate that, usually you just use a water fix sometimes, but if you want to use copious amounts of water, it's like 50 cc's of irrigant per cubic centimeter of tissue usually. Again, that's an emulsion. The laceration, pardon me, it's not an emulsion. Laceration, okay? Deep cut, again, can be through tendons, all kinds of stuff. Usually a ragged edge, a lot of potential contamination, and it can be vascular compromise as well as nerve and tendon damage. This is an emulsion here that's been torn open. Look, you can see the staples in it there when they put it back together. Okay. Big hanging flap there. Okay, amputation is an injury of the body parts can be severed. Penetrating wound and the injury resulting from piercing object. Again, open injuries. Stabbing and shooting often result in multiple penetrating injuries. Again, it depends a lot on the length of the object, the velocity of the gun, the height of the victim, and height of the assailant. Again, assess the patient, carefully identify all wounds, count the number of penetrating wounds. Again, in your trauma exam, they always emphasize what? Entrance and exit. Okay? And again, if people die, it's rate of morbidity and mortality or multi-system trauma patients. Again, if you can't determine the type of gun, then possible. It kind of defines itself, doesn't it? Like abdominal thoracic injury, long bones thoracic injury. Those people have a much higher morbidity and mortality rate. Okay? So it's just, and again, what's the maximum time in field for basic trauma?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, the platinum 10, right? So blast injury we've already talked about. Your primary blast injury caused by a blast wave or sudden pressure change. Secondary blast for flying debris. The tertiary blast is victim is thrown by an explosion, perhaps onto an object. The one they didn't mention was planetary, right? Which is a combination of anything. More difficult to assess closed injury than open injury. Obviously, you can see an open injury, okay? Consider the possibility of closed injury when you observe bruising, swelling, deformity, or the patient reporting pain. And again, an injury of abdominal trauma may be a little vague or not specific. And again, mechanism, very important. Each eyes up, of course, back to the injury. Look for indicators of MOI. We assess the scene. And again, MOI may provide information about potential safety threats, evaluate scene safety, consider additional resources. Primary assessment. Again, identify life threats, transport priority, form a general impression, look for indicators of the patient's condition, check for more serious hidden injuries, and check for responses. Circulation. Significant bleeding is an immediate life threat and must be controlled before airway is open. Again, X for insanguinate, right? It's actually sanguinate with an E, but they use X to just make it clearer, if you will. If the patient is obvious life-threatening external bleeding, you have to control it, manage the airway, and assess and treat for shock. Remember, when you treat for shock, what do? Keep them warm, lay them down, get them on O2 priority transport. If you forget any of those, you will not pass that. Airway breathing, ensure the patient has a clearing paying their way. If you hear gurgling, what are you gonna do?
Suction.
So what are you gonna do for his suction? You're gonna get him on his side,
So-
right? He clears very well. They will give you questions just like that. And they if they throw in PSI or seat safety, what comes first? Your visible act, right? Protect patient for further spinal injury. Again, when you come up on scene and you're given a trauma patient, seat safe PSI, and the issue is C-spine, unknown. Your bias head, right? Departed bias head. What type of airway maneuver? Jaw thrust, right? Again, do no harm, I protect his spinal cord. Again, assess the patient for adequate breathing, provide high flow to assist ventilation if needed. So if it's said insufficient or shallow, that would be a clue for you to do what? Bag his ass, right? Inspect the palpate chest for deep gap BTLS. You see a sucking chest wound, what are you gonna do? Fix it. Then what are you gonna do? Validate what you just did. And go back and continue with something, right? Transport decision. Get your primary assessment and you can transport these cases for initial general impression. The guys that train us, you can train us, right? All of the consciousness, dyspnea. It's called syncope, by the way, Natasha, not syncope. It's syncope, not syncope. So again, these are all life threats here, right? Poor initial impression, altered mental status, shortness of breath, abnormal vital signs, shock, severe pain. Again, history taking, investigate chief complaint, use sample, OPRST, PCAT, PTLS for rounded assessment. Again, if the patient's not responsive, attempt to maintain history from another source, back to work tags, witnesses, family members, if possible. Chronic medical conditions may complicate soft tissue injuries. Specifically what? Diabetes, long-term steroid use, immunosuppressive, all these things will aggravate these injuries. What else is a big one? Blood thinners, right? Because they're not gonna clot each. Secondary assessment, assessing interventions to routine vital signs, that typically performed in route to emergency department. Assess all anatomical regions. Physical exam. Listen for lung sound. Determine respiratory rate. Note the pattern, quality of respiratory effort. Is he having a lot of excessive muscle use? Is there one or two word dyspnea? Okay. Assess rate-symmetric chest wall motion, which may be indicative of what? Oil chest. Again, assess neurologic system. So what would be some assessment of your neurological system?
AFU.
AFU, right? AFU good. Pulse motor sensory, right? Okay. Again, assess musculoskeletal system with a detailed exam of the entire body. Again, you look for range of motion, you check for replacement box, okay? Vital signs, you assess vital signs, identify how quickly the patient's condition is changing, and you're doing vital signs because you're doing what? Trending, right? Signs that indicate adequate perfusion and rapid transport. The first thing you change is usually tachycardia. Tachypnea. Low supermaciation. Tachycardia. tachypnea, bradypnea, low blood pressure, weak pulse, cool, moist, and pale skin. So cool, moist, and pale skin, is that an alpha effect, a beta 1 effect, or beta 2 effect? Beta 1's what? Cardiac. Beta 2's lung. Cool, pale skin is alpha, right? Again, you go to the dentist, you come home, lemon finger gums white. Your gums are white because you, the brain donor, got lidocaine with epinephrine. The reason you got the epinephrine is so what? You wouldn't read all over his shit, right? That's why your gums are white. Reassessment, primary assessment, effectiveness prior treatments, reassess vital signs and chief complaints. Recheck patient interventions, reassess pathogens, identify and treat patient's condition, communication, documentation, description, mechanism of injury. There's certain criteria we talked about before, trauma center criteria. Position which you found the patient. Amount of blood loss, which is just a pure estimate, right? Location, description of any soft tissue injuries or wounds, size and depth of injury, how you treated the injury. Again, emergency medical care for closed injuries, no special emergency care for small contusion. Excessive injuries can lead to hypovolemic shock, whether it's pretty obvious or not, right? If they have what they call an occult bleed, that means based on their vital signs and their skin, there's something going on, but you can't see obvious bleeding. Okay? Closely watch an area of injury, no matter how minor. Again, abdominal distension, things like that would be clues. We talked before about Gray Turner sign, which he wasn't familiar with. That's purpling back here in your flank. Okay, that's usually your retroperitoneal hemorrhage. Quite often Cullen sign, which you didn't know, is bruising around the periumbilical area when you have retroperitoneal bleeding, or abruptios. You'll have purpling around the stuff. In fact, I had a young man down in the Bronwyn area. He was on his mountain bike. He took the handlebars over the mountain bike. He had really significant abdominal pain. He went to Rotman. They said, hey, you bruised your spleen and your liver. Take it easy. Well, being a good boy with big balls and no brains, he went home and started working out like a monster and passed out. We get there and he's got purpling around the umbilical cord. I said, oh, sonny, you're going to get cracked now. What do you mean? You're going to surgery. You ruptured your spleen, big dog, okay? Because he didn't listen. Okay. These are cerebral hemispheres. These are not testicles. And of course, major surgery, complications. Okay. So again, when they tell you something, probably for a reason. I had a fireman. We used to play jungle ball where I worked with. It's 6-sided handball. It's a pretty brutal game, right? The guy comes back from having kissing degrees, mono. He sweet talks the doctor, let him come back to duty. What does this fool do the first day back? Let's play a game of jungle ball. So he's out there in Pacoima playing jungle ball. Guess who passes out, gets pale, gets really ill. Mister, I ruptured my spleen, okay? So again, you know, you say these things for a reason. I don't have any idea to take your advice. Again, the tendency initially, the pain may be pretty non-specific, and then as time goes on, it gets more pronounced. Treat those tissue injuries, usually a term rices. You got injuries mnemonic all the time for strains, sprains, and fractures. Rices, so rest, ice compression, elevation, and splinting. Especially dental trauma, ice works very well for dental, okay? Keep the swelling and bleeding under control. And again, splitting, the same thing. Arrest, ice, compression, elevation, splitting. Signs of developing shock. Again, some of the first signs you have are pretty non-specific and vague. Irritability and agitation, right? Mental status changes. Tachycardia, heart rate, respiratory rate, diaphoresis, sweating, right? Cool, clammy skin, decreased blood pressure. What's decreased blood pressure? Compensated or decompensated? Decompensated, right? Before caring for the patient, follow the standard precautions. If life-threatening bleeding is observed, assign a team member to apply direct pressure. Cover wounds in the chest, upper abdomen, and upper back with occlusive dressing. You all know what that is, right? Mentioned this before. Occlusive, you cannot get water through it, right? Vaseline, even saline base so that it is airtight. Again, if it's on the chest, back it's 3 sides, and the neck it's 4 sides, and down. The one injury is going to give you the quickest onset is not decompression injuries. The correct answer is going to be air embolus. Control bleeding using direct pressure elevation, pressure dressings or splints, and tourniquets. Again, all the major cavitary lesions I've had, you don't simply lay 4x4s in there. You pack them. You have ABD pads, bony trauma dressings, and you pack that freaking wound. Okay? And then you take a bind or whatever to secure it. You don't want any materials to throw you up there. And if you have a desiccant like Quick Clot, you put that in if it works. If it clots after a few minutes, great. If it doesn't, you take it out and reapply it and then back the wound. That's all the only choice that you've got. Okay, you can't go tourniquet on a separate wound. All of the wounds are assumed to be contaminated in the presence of this infection. Control bleeding, splitting of extremity, and even if there is no fracture. Again, if you look at this young man here, there's a boot print on his gut. They should take the father out who did that shoot that. But this young man's eviscerated because somebody took a boot and stepped on his guts. Okay? I've had quite a few cases like this. One was subpoenaed off over 4 years. It's a homicide up in Foothills, Arabella. But again, that's evisceration. Okay, and you can see the footprint on the abdomen. Okay. Again, you don't want to push the organs back in. You want to put a wet occlusive dressing over them, and put a loose sponge over them. And how would you want his knees, up or down? Up. You'll probably assume that position anyway. Okay. That's about as far as his esophagus around the mouth. Okay. Some of these are just off the example, some of the burns and stuff. Like this, the ratio heart. It's pretty easy to be disappointed in humanity. So evisceration always protrude to the wall. Okay. And again, occlusive, moist occlusive dressing, right? Loose fitting dressing. Okay, cover wound with sterile gauze, secure gauze with occlusive dressing, keep organs warm and moist. If you've never seen a good evisceration, I was working Skid Row and a guy came out of MacArthur's Park and the rest in there, he was a weenie waver. And somebody took a knife and just cut his guts as he came off it. Someone out of the bathroom there. And the thing you notice is the omentum, it's the fatty sheath that goes over the bowel. looks like broken up styrofoam, is what it looks like. But that's a patty sheet that covers the valve. Yeah, here's the before. So again, like you remove an impaled object, this comes up all the time, if you hit that question. When it's in the cheek or mouth that obstructs the airway, or interferes with CPR. It's that simple, okay? If you got a knife sitting in his fourth to fifth intercostal space and it's a traumatic cardiac arrest, you're gonna have to remove that wound or that knife and put an occlusive dressing over it and do CPR, right? That's simple. Again, open neck injuries can be life-threatening. Again, we talked about the anterior triangle there. All the veins may suck air and cause cardiac arrest. Takes quite a bit of air. Cover them with occlusive dressing. Apply manual pressure, but do not compress both carotid arteries at the same time. Again, you have two sets of carotid arteries, you have internal and external. Animal bites, again, they usually require some work, agreement, maybe essays, not of killing antibiotics, tetanus prophylaxis, surgical repair, and quite often rabies. Again, they should be evaluated by a physician. Human bites about number 2 or 3 on the list. I've been bit a few times. Major concerns, the spread of rabies, acute potentially fatal viral infection in the central nervous system. By the time you're symptomatic with rabies, you're dead, you don't know it yet. So again, if they suspect it's a rabid animal, quite often they fishing game monitors, this stuff like raccoons and other animals, they would recommend the series. Transmitted through body licking over wound, prevented by a series of special vaccines that are given in the abdominal muscle.
So that's what we would do if you were infected with rabies?
If there was a high suspicion that the animal that bit you was rabid, they would initiate prophylactic treatment. Usually they can find the animal for 10 days, and if he dies, they take him to the brain and make a determination. But they don't wait till he dies to do that. They start the treatment pretty early on. Again, regarding any human bite, and penetrating the skin is potentially very serious. We're going to need another tetanus shot and, of course, antibiotics. Can result in serious spreading infection. That's a cat scratch. A human bite, again, emergency treatment applied, dry, sterile dressing, immobilize the area, split bandage, provide transportation, emergency department. Again, burns are probably the most serious and painful of all injuries. Burn occurs when the body receives more radiant energy than it can absorb. Of course, the damage remains low heat, toxic chemicals, and electricity. Again, always perform a complete assessment to determine whether other serious injuries are present. Children, older patients, and patients with chronic illnesses are more likely to experience shock from burning. You can usually tell by the burn what the mechanism was, usually hot liquid or iron or something. Or like the couple I had in Bakersfield years ago, they had a thing for gummy bears, okay? So he went out and got the biggest gummy bear he could find, and they melted it down, and they were gonna pour it over each other before they get the wild thing. Well, when you think that's like putting hot tar on your stuff. That woman was doing a serious fire dance when we got there. It's all over her stuff. Okay? It's like hot tar. And unfortunately, the way you take it off is what? Mineral oil or peanut butter. And you just give them pain medicine and pull that stuff off.
brother was, building a gas station.
Yeah.
We were in the shop and we all heard it and my brother was, couldn't even scream or that much, cause
Yeah,
it went on his, like,
usually
his
you,
arm.
usually you fill the tank to the top, you know? Yeah. Just the vapors, so, if you get gas on the fire, you put out, you can't get gas on the flame. The vapors will go. Yeah, it's such a little flash bulb. Yeah. I had quite a few that just burned. Rebase, my whole party took care of Richard Pryor when he was rebasing. Up Parthenia Boulevard down there, set himself on fire, yeah. So, Panda, let's take a break. You'll get a nap right now, okay? Come back at 12:05.